Well, this week is the Feast of Passover and the beginning of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Well, what's the difference in the two, you might be saying, and what can we learn from each? So welcome to this week's Shabbat Shalom devotional, when I seek to share just a little inspiration and bring a little peace to the close of your very busy week. We're going to take a break from our Torah portions this week in order to discuss Passover. So there are two feasts. Passover is on the 14th day of the Hebrew month, and then the Feast of Unleavened Bread begins on the 15th and goes for a full week. Now, Passover actually is what is translated into most of our English Bibles as Passover, that the Lord would pass over, could more accurately be translated as to hover over, which is a whole different concept, that God was hovering over the homes of the Israelites with the blood of the Lamb on the lamppost to protect them. It's a different way of looking at it. And I want to read to you Exodus 12, verse 23, with that in mind. For the Lord will pass through to strike the Egyptians. And when he sees the blood on the lintel and on the two doorposts, the Lord will pass over the door and not allow the destroyer to come into your houses to strike you. So you see how passing over isn't passing over and going on at all. It was to hover over that door and protect the Israelites from the destroyer who was going throughout Egypt. Interesting, huh? So one element of the Passover is the eating of the Paschal lamb. In Exodus, we read about that and we already talked about it last month. But the lamb was to be eaten in community. In other words, you were to get a lamb the size of which was appropriate for your whole family. And if you didn't have enough in your family, bring in the neighbors. And so that this lamb was enough for a whole group of people, and you ate it in community. So it's as though the Lord wanted them to come together and be in unity before they are set free. In Leviticus, we see how that the eating of the sacrificial animals sometimes is to be eaten after the sacrifice, and it is also with others. Community is important to God. In Exodus, then, they're told to put the blood of the lamb on the lamppost. Later in the wilderness, in Leviticus, we come to understand the importance of the blood sacrifice as a cover of our sin. Of course, as I mentioned last week, that also is the foundation of understanding Jesus and the sacrifice he made on behalf of the world. Now, the Feast of Unleavened Bread then begins on the 15th of the month and continues. And for a whole week, the Israelites were not to eat any leavened bread. They could only eat unleavened bread. And in order, of course, to remember that night from the Exodus. But I think there may be more to it than that. So let's read from Exodus 12, verse 15. On the first day, you shall remove leaven from your houses, for whoever eats leavened bread from the first day until the seventh day, that person shall be cut off from Israel. So they're told to put away the leaven, or what we would call starter. And it's a different word than when it says that they should not eat leavened bread. That is the word hamatz. Leavened bread, as I said last week, was a symbol of Egyptian ingenuity. Now, the starter took days to create, so this was a real sacrifice for them to throw away their starter, as well as the leavened bread that had been made from it. They were to leave Egypt and return to who they were. They were not Egyptian, and so this type of Egyptian ingenuity they were to leave behind. They were to be a people on the move, following a God on the move. They were of nomadic roots, and they were returning to a nomadic season in the wilderness. and matzah was to be their food. You could say that matzah was a bread or a food of faith. It expressed who they were and their faith in God, that they were following Him. They were a people on the move and didn't have time to leaven their bread. So with that, I hope you have a wonderful Shabbat break this weekend, and I wish you Shabbat Shalom.